Welcome, Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, and all of you here under the Menon Gate or watching us somewhere else in the world. In this ceremony, we remember the sacrifice of hundreds of thousands of soldiers who died here near Ypres and in so many other places, fighting for the causes of freedom and peace. Tijdens deze plechtigheid herdenken wij het offer van honderdduizenden soldaten die hun leven lieten in deze streek en op zoveel andere plaatsen voor de vrijheid en de vrede. But we also want to pay tribute to those who, every day since 1928 and today, for the 30,000th time, paid a tribute to all those fallen. Maar we willen ook hulde brengen aan hen die elke dag sinds 1928 en vandaag voor de 30.000ste keer een ode brengen aan alle slachtoffers. Every night stand here, the firemen of Ypres, the buglers of the Last Post Association, in good and bad weather. These days many people join them, but for many years often only a few looked on. Elke avond staan ze hier, de brandweerlui van Ypres, de klaroeners van de Last Post Association, in goed en in slecht weer. Nu krijgen ze het gezelschap van velen, maar jaren geleden waren er soms weinig toeschouwers onder de poort. Many leading figures worldwide have been here, listening in silence and being overwhelmed, just as many hundreds of thousands of ordinary people have come from all over the world. Veel groten der aarde waren hier, luisterend, in stilte en onder de indruk, net zoals vele honderdduizenden anderen overal in de wereld. Dit is een ode aan de ode. This is a tribute to the tribute.
Links. Links. Vooruit. Uit. Op. Rechts. Rechts.
Tribute. When the last post blows, the stars and planets stand still. The wind holds its breath, the rain stops, the moon turns pale. There's peace on earth, but a mournful sadness fills the air. Compassion flows down from on high, bowing every head. The bugles sound like foghorns. Uit de nevels staan de doden op, zacht en teder. Er dwarrelt sterrenstof, rozenblaadjes, klaprozen. Alles is rustig onder de Menepoort, maar de vrede heeft een valse schijn. The Last Post blaast ons terug naar de oude wereld van dodenakkers en vertrapte weidegrond, de stank die over de slagvelden hangt. Mustard gas drifts across the mud of the trenches. The horror of the First World War is the silent cry that died on the lips of thousands of lost souls. Young men, their names engraved forever in long, cold lists. Died for the fatherland, mourned in the motherland. Elke avond om 8 uur stipt blazen klaroeners de namen weer tot leven. Een laatste eresaluut voor de gevallenen. Het einde van de werkdag. Daarna klinkt de reveille, het ontwaken, opstaan en weer doorgaan. De eeuwige wederkeer, schepping, rijping, dood. Generaties verdwijnen, verhalen verdampen, maar de herinnering mag nooit vergaan. The Last Post does not just remember. It keeps hope alive. It calls the city and the world to order. Under the Menon Gate, night after night, this legitimate tribute takes place, so that we will never forget, but above all, so that we will see, once and for all, that every war, anywhere in the world, is an attack on the foundations of our civilization. Tonight, many people, firemen and others in this country and all over the world, not only want to watch, they also want to participate in this tribute. We will be going to the Royal Hospital in Chelsea, London, where Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent, and President of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, is joined by many others, watching and participating. Vanavond willen veel mensen, brandweerlui en anderen in dit land en elders in de wereld niet alleen kijken naar deze ode, ze willen ook deelnemen. We zullen naar het Chelsea Royal Hospital in Londen gaan, waar Prins Edward, de hertog van Kent, en vele anderen kijken en deelnemen. And we will also be going to Canberra, the capital of Australia, to New Delhi, India, to Halifax, Canada, to Wellington, New Zealand, and many other places. En we gaan ook naar Canberra, de hoofdstad van Australië, naar India Gate, New Delhi, India, naar Halifax, Canada, naar Wellington in Nieuw-Zeeland en vele andere plaatsen. And now, we will start with the official ceremony. We listen to the call to attention, which is followed by a short address by Mr. Benoît Moutry, the chairman of the Last Post Association. En nu beginnen we met de officiële plechtigheid. We luisteren naar de Geef 8 en dan naar een korte toespraak van de heer Benoît Moutry, de voorzitter van de Last Post Association.
Your Majesty, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. On the 1st of July 1928, the haunting notes of the Last Post were sounded under the Meningate Memorial for the very first time, as a mark of respect for those who fell in defense of the city of Ypres during the Great War of 1914-1918. 87 years and 30,000 ceremonies later, the Last Post Association still organizes its daily act of remembrance with that same purpose in mind. It is a solemn and moving tribute to the soldiers of the British Commonwealth who died for the freedoms we hold so dear and for the restoration of peace. Know that the last representatives of that golden generation have finally gone to join their comrades. It is the task of organizations such as ours to keep their memory alive and to pass on the lessons of what they experienced to the younger generations of today. By playing the Last Post here every evening, we therefore not only honor our debt to the past, by remembering those who fought and died to make the world a better place, but we also fulfill our obligations to the future by giving those who attend our ceremony the chance to reflect on the true meaning of war and all that it entails. The bravery, the suffering, the comradeship, the heartache, the devotion to duty. Depending on our different viewpoints, we may all reach different conclusions on these matters. But this is not important. What is important is that we all think about what happened here all those many years ago. What is important is that we remember. As time passes, so this process of collective remembrance will become more rather than less important. For this reason, it is vital that the Last Post ceremony continues to survive far into the future. It is only at places like the Menin Gate, it is only during ceremonies such as the last post that future generations will be able to truly understand the tragic cost of man's inhumanity to man. It is a lesson that we cannot afford to forget.
The Band of Royal Engineers and the choir chorus will now play and sing the hymn Abide With Me. De Band of Royal Engineers en het koor chorus brengen nu de hymne Abide With Me, blijf mij nabij. We will now listen to the story of Private Sidney Barrow. He died 100 years ago today and is commemorated along with 55,000 other missing soldiers on this Menin Gate Memorial. The story is read by Stanley Pepper, a pensioner at the Royal Hospital in Chelsea, London. We luisteren nu naar het verhaal van soldaat Sidney Barrow. Vandaag precies 100 jaar geleden stierf hij en met 55.000 andere vermiste soldaten staat zijn naam hier op de Menepoort. In Londen, in het Royal Hospital, de verblijfplaats van vele gepensioneerde Britse veteranen, leest pensioner Stanley Pepper het verhaal van Sidney Barrow. At the Royal Hospital in Chelsea, London, pensioner Stanley Pepper reads the story of Sidney Barrow.
The story of Private Barrow, who died on this day 100 years ago. Tonight we especially remember, among the many thousands on the walls of the Menin Gate, Private Sidney Barrow, who died 100 years ago today, aged 28, while serving with the 1st Battalion of the Hampshire Regiment. Sidney was the son of William and Mary Barrow of Christchurch, Hampshire. He was married to Maud and became a professional soldier. Sidney left with the 1st Battalion at the outbreak of war, arriving in France on the 21st of August 1914. He first saw action at Le Cateau before marching south to St. Paul in the Battle of the Aisne. In mid-October, Sidney was sent to serve in northern France and then crossed into Belgium to fight in the trenches at Pluxert, where he took part in the Christmas truce. Following the gas attack that launched the Second Battle of Ypres on the 22nd of April 15, Sidney was deployed to the salient to assist in the defence of the city. He continued to fight on as the battalion took heavy losses, and by the time Sidney took part in his final action, he was one of a small number of men who were still serving with the battalion, which had left for France in August 1914. An attack was made against the International Trench by the Rifle Brigade, and Sidney was sent to the front line 2 days later, where he was killed by splinters from a shell that burst close to him. A number of his comrades died with him, and they, with Sidney, are commemorated on panel 35 on the Menin Gate Memorial.
We now listen to the last post, the traditional salute to those who have died in the service of their country, performed by the buglers of the Last Post Association. As a tribute, the last post will be echoed from 3 symbolic locations in the United Kingdom: the tomb of the unknown warrior in Westminster Abbey, London, Cardiff Castle in Wales, and Hillsborough Castle in Belfast, Northern Ireland. We luisteren nu naar The Last Post, het eresaluut voor de gesneuvelde kameraden, gespeeld door de klaroeners van de Last Post Association. Als eerbetoon volgt een echo van The Last Post vanuit 3 symbolische locaties in het Verenigd Koninkrijk. Het graf van de onbekende soldaat in Westminster Abbey, Londen, Cardiff Castle in Wales en Hillsborough Castle in Belfast, Noord-Ierland. We gaan nu naar het Australian War Memorial in Canberra, Australië, waar het nu 4 uur in de nacht is. We now go to the Australian War Memorial in Canberra, where it is now 4 o'clock in the morning. Bij de Pool of Reflection roept Ben Robert Smith, Australië's meest gedecoreerde veteraan, ons op tot herdenken. Hij was meerdere malen actief in Afghanistan. Near the Pool of Reflection, Lance Corporal Ben Robert Smith, Australia's most decorated Afghanistan veteran and VC winner, calls us to remembrance of the fallen. The exhortation.
They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget.
Eén minuut ingetogen stilte in 8. We will now observe 1 minute of silence. We now listen to a lament played on the battlements of Edinburgh Castle in Scotland by Pipe Major MacGregor from Four Scots. We luisteren nu naar het lament gespeeld op de vestingsmuren van Edinburgh Castle in Schotland door Pipe Major MacGregor from Four Scots. Wreaths will now be laid in memory of all those who died in Flanders fields and who rest forever in Flemish soil. We gaan nu over tot de bloemenhulde aan al diegenen die in Vlaamse velden het leven lieten en thans voor eeuwig rusten in de Vlaamse bodem. Hare Majesteit de Koningin legt het eerste bloemstuk in naam van het Belgische volk. And further wreaths will now be laid by Dr. Andrew Murrison, as Special Representative of the Prime Minister David Cameron for the UK. For Australia, by Mr. Darren Chester, MP. For Canada, by Lieutenant General Richard Romer. For New Zealand, by Mr. Todd McClay, MP. For India, by Ambassador Mr. Manjeev Singh Puri. For South Africa, Mr. Elwin Beck, Minister Plenipotentiary. For Ireland, Ambassador Mr. Eamon Makoda. For the United States, Ambassador Mrs. Denise Bauer. For France, Premier Secretary Mr. François-Xavier Raymond. And for Germany, Permanent Representative Mr. Michael Häusler. We now go to Berlin, to the Neue Wache, the central memorial of Germany for the victims of war and tyranny. We gaan nu naar de Neue Wache in Berlijn, de centrale gedenkplaats van de Bondsrepubliek Duitsland voor de slachtoffers van oorlog en tirannie. In name of the German people, President Joachim Gauck lays down a wreath, followed by the President of the Flemish Parliament, Jan Peumans. In naam van het Duitse volk legt president Joachim Gauck een krans en na hem Vlaams parlementsvoorzitter Peumans als symbolische daad van verzoening. Na Berlijn volgt nu een kranslegging in Parijs onder de Arc de Triomphe bij het graf van de Franse onbekende soldaat. After Berlin, a wreath will now be laid in Paris under the Arc de Triomphe by the tomb of the French unknown soldier. Eerst wordt de vlam voor de onbekende soldaat aangewakkerd. As every night, the flame by the grave of the unknown soldier is enkindled. Staatssecretaris Jean-Marc Todeschini legt een krans neer. Secretary of State Jean-Marc Todeschini lays down a wreath. And now, in Wellington, New Zealand, at the Pukehu National War Memorial Park, a wreath is laid on the tomb of the unknown warrior by Second Lieutenant Claire de Broy from the Royal New Zealand Engineers. And in Wellington, Nieuw-Zeeland, in het Pukehu National War Memorial Park, legt Second Lieutenant Claire de Broy een krans neer op het graf van de onbekende soldaat. And finally, here back in Ypres, under the Menengate, Mr. Geert Bourgeois, Minister-President of Flanders, Mr. Steven van de Put, Federal Minister of Defense Belgium, Mr. Karel de Calouet, Governor of West Flanders, Mr. Jan Durnay, Mayor of Ypres, Sir Joe French, Vice Chairman, Commonwealth War Graves Commission, Chairman of Parliament, Siegfried Bracke, and Mr. Benoît Moutry will lay down a wreath. Halifax, de havenstad aan de Canadese oostkust, was de plaats van waaruit bijna alle Canadese soldaten tijdens de Grote Oorlog naar het westelijk front vertrokken. The port of Halifax, on the Canadian East Coast, was the place from where most Canadian soldiers embarked for the Western Front during the First World War. Canada's minister van Justitie, Peter MacKay, leest in Flanders Fields voor. Het beroemde gedicht van zijn landgenoot John McCrae. The Minister of Justice of Canada, Peter MacKay, reads in Flanders Fields the famous poem of his compatriot John McCrae.
In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
The choir chorus will now sing the hymn O Valiant Hearts, accompanied by the band of the Royal Engineers. We luisteren nu naar de hymne O Valiant Hearts, gezongen door het koor chorus, begeleid door de band of the Royal Engineers.
Try
Onder de India Gate in New Delhi ligt de Indische onbekende soldaat begraven en brandt ook de eeuwige vlam. Under the India Gate in New Delhi, the Indian unknown soldier lies buried and also burns the eternal flame. We now listen to the Kohima epitaph, most frequently associated with the sacrifice of a second generation of young men and women during the Second World War. De Kohima-epitaaf wordt vaak geassocieerd met de slachtoffers van de Tweede Wereldoorlog. The epitaph is read by retired squadron leader Rana Kina at the All India War Memorial Arch in New Delhi. Squadron leader Rana Kina leest de Kohima.
When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today.
The ceremony is brought to conclusion with the Reveille, played by the buglers of the Last Post Association. The Reveille symbolizes an awakening of the dead in a better world and also rouses we who remain back to our earthly duty now that we have paid our due respects. En we beëindigen deze ceremonie met de Reveille. De Reveille is het symbool van de wederopstanding van de doden in een betere wereld. Het ontwaken, opstaan en weer doorgaan. Een speciaal dankwoord aan de Last Post komt vanuit St. James Palace in Londen, in naam van het Verenigd Koninkrijk door Prins Edward, hertog van Kent. From St. James Palace in London, Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent, addresses a special word of thanks to the Last Post in Ypres.
As President of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, the organization responsible for the creation and upkeep of the magnificent and deeply moving Menin Gate, I'm delighted to have this opportunity to thank the people of Flanders, and especially Ypres and members of the Last Post Association, for continuing to honor the sacrifice of our fallen. The 54,000 names recorded there came from around the world, from every corner of the United Kingdom and from Ireland. Every night since 1928, in all weathers, the people of Ypres, and especially the volunteers of the Last Post Association, have been joined by pilgrims and visitors as the notes of the Last Post echo among the names of the dead who are once again remembered. I have stood with you on many occasions, and yet each visit is as moving as the first. Young people who participate in the daily ceremony come away with new awareness of the past and of its relevance to them. Families whose loved ones were lost in the terrible battles in the fields of Flanders have derived great comfort from the ongoing commitment of the Belgian people to continue commemorating the fallen. That is your gift to us and to those who fell, and this generous act does not go unnoticed. On behalf of us all, I offer warm thanks to the citizens of Ypres and members of the Last Post Association, and hope that this nightly act of remembrance will continue to inspire and resonate with the visitors to the battlefields in perpetuity.
And we will close this ceremony with the national anthems of Great Britain and Belgium. En we sluiten deze plechtigheid af met de nationale volksliederen van het Verenigd Koninkrijk en België. Koningin Mathilde zal nu aan het eind van deze ode aan de ode een persoonlijke groet brengen aan de klaroeners van de Last Post Association, samen met de andere excellenties. At the end of this tribute to the tribute, Queen Mathilde will salute the buglers of the Last Post Association together with the other excellencies. Daarna zal de koningin ook nog het Gulden Boek van de Last Post Association ondertekenen and the Queen will also sign the Golden Book of the Last Post Association.